Welcome one, welcome all to the Snail Trail 4x4 podcast. If you like going off-roading in Toyotas, wrenching on Toyotas, camping in Toyotas, and maybe even poking a little bit of fun at Toyotas, and of course, hearing about how fantastic spare alternators are in Toyotas, then this is the podcast for you. That's right, ladies and germs. My name is Tyler, and joining me for another Thursday episode. Thirsty Thursday? We have more Fireball things in the fridge if you need to add one to your coffee.
Not today. I've got too much going on.
Oh, man. Welcome back to the studio yet again, Mr. Jimmy Jet Black.
Thanks.
Yeah, welcome back to the studio, the Thursday episode here. So we got a lots to cover and talk about today. This is the Rubithon recap week. So we had the Sierra Trek recap week last week.
Yes.
This week is Rubithon.
Yes, it is.
Yes, sir. Let's see. So Thursday episode, we have some housekeeping to get up on.
Yeah, we got a lot of things this episode. We got housekeeping. We're going to talk about FNGs, anniversaries. We have a voicemail. We have actually talking about what is in Corey the Gear Wrench giveaway from Corey's storage locker or whatever. What did I write it down as? Corey's storage locker giveaway.
There we go.
And we tallied that all up, and we tallied a lot of it up, and then we stopped counting. We got and then we'll talk about Rubithon.
Yeah, man. Which was eventful. The last day.
The last day was a long day.
Yeah. All right, man. So let's jump right in here. Let's start off with the affordable bender, shall we?
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. We have an affordable bender to give away that we've been talking about through the month of August, which was August giveaway for all of the people in the giveaway or gift box tier. So we got that to come on. And who do we have as our wiener?
Congratulations to Patrick Eddy.
Petty
1111.
111.
Something like
1111.
Also, I'm pretty sure we sent you the swag pack, but I can't remember.
I don't remember.
And I know
either.
you won a swag pack, but we'll get in contact with you, and we'll make sure that your contact information is correct. We're going to have to send that over to Affordable Bender. They're going to ship it out. We'll also figure out what die you want because you can request a die. 1 inch, 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 3/4, and 2 inch. Yeah. So we can figure that out, and then let us know if we sent you the swag pack that you won for 350 review.
I think it was 350 because
sure
400 was somebody else.
That was Martlovesgarlic.
That's right.
And I spoke to him recently.
And we haven't sent his out.
We haven't sent his out because he lives in Canada.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So we were discussing levels of payment.
Yeah.
Because we'll pay to ship our swag packs across the country, but there's more fees that go into shipping international. Like we've talked about many times before. But so I spoke to him, and he said he wants the full hefty swag pack, and he'll pay the difference.
Okay.
So
sweet. When you get that sent out,
we need to get that sent out as well.
I also have Charles Locke and James, Mini Truck James, at Corso Caravan.
Yeah.
Those are the last two items we have not sent from Tool Month, and Charles Locke has a bunch of stuff in it.
Everything.
So, yeah.
He's got winning stuff from Wheeling Wine and Whiskey. He has a shirt or two from me, a shirt from Wheeling Wine and Whiskey. Yeah, he's got a bunch of stuff coming to him.
So Charles, I still need to get in contact with you about the shipping costs there. We have it all calculated. I haven't reached out yet. So anyways, so congratulations to Petty for winning the affordable bender. Yeah. This month we are giving away Corey's storage locker.
Yep. One or two items from his storage locker.
We kind of started making a list, like you said, of stuff that we're going to include for this giveaway. And then we were like, yeah, we'll just say this much because it came out to $349 so far. And then we're like, and we'll throw in a bunch of other random miscellaneous stuff as well.
One of the benefits of hanging out with Gear Wrench Corey and helping him move his storage locker was we got a lot of randomness.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some like a random screwdriver or a random wrench or a random something. And we didn't really want to calculate all that stuff.
Yeah.
Go in there and find out how much a single screwdriver costs from Crescent. But so we calculated some of the big ticket items. And some of those items on this list include the original E-Spec, not E-Spec. It's just an electric. Yeah.
Yep.
Original electric torque wrench, half-inch drive. That retails for somewhere around $168.
Okay.
There's a gear wrench light that comes in at a whopping $96.
Nice.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite too.
Those ones are really nice. I really like that one. It puts out a great spread, which it works really well for like working under a hood or under the rig or anything.
Yep.
Or in a fender, which I just recently did. What else we got on here? We have the Lufkin 25-foot magnetic
which is a really nice feature.
Which is a super nice feature, $23. We have a Crescent 11-in-1 screwdriver.
Nice.
$15.
That's the ratcheting one too, right?
It is the ratcheting one, yep. We have the WIS scissors.
Nice.
Not WIS snips, WIS scissors.
Yeah.
Which both Tyler and I have and are out like the best scissors I have in my house.
Yeah, I ended up getting a bunch of them for the warehouse here.
I got some extra ones for the shop, and I have one pair in the kitchen of the house. Yeah.
Nice.
They're so good.
Are this one is the spring-loaded one without the thumb handle on it?
Yes, it's a spring-loaded one that also locks closed.
Yeah.
Because it's spring-loaded.
I love those. The employees, the MFers, they complain about them.
That's funny. I like that one, and then the significant other likes the other version.
Okay.
So. And then the last item on this list is the new version of Crescent pliers, which comes in at like $24. And so all those things labeled there came out to be $349. And then there's going to be some other randomness tossed in. I know there's two items down there that one of them's a bit that you put into a 1/4-inch drive that supposedly has some sort of mechanism on the inside of it. So you can put like a screwdriver tip in there or a Torx tip or any tip you want. And there's some sort of mechanism on the inside of this bit that will prevent you from breaking the bits.
Correct.
Which is kind of neat. So it has some sort of torque relief inside of it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. And then do you want to talk about the other one, which you tried to steal and hide away?
It is from Crescent. It's a Puerto Rican socket set. That has a light on it on both sides of it.
Yeah.
So an adjustable wrench for those of you that are not aware what Puerto Rican socket sets are.
We can also call it a Crescent wrench.
That's true because it is a wrench from Crescent.
Which a lot of people do call that Puerto Rican socket sets.
So it's really neat because there is a light on it, and it's a 9-inch adjustable wrench there in length. So like, and if you have to work on the rig or work on suspension bolts or something at night, it's a really great option. I didn't even realize they had that. I was like, what is this?
Yeah. Or somewhere in like the engine bay where you're working inside the engine bay or something. That'd be that's kind of neat. And so there's just some items that we haven't even tallied up that would definitely bump this whole package a little higher. So we're saying is a $350 value plus some.
Yep. That works.
And I have some more random, like one-off, like a screwdriver. Maybe I'll throw. I think we have a Phillips laid out there, and maybe I'll find a flathead to match it or something at my house. And but they're unused tools.
Yep.
From his storage locker. None of them are used. They're all brand new. It's just random things that we found in there that we hid away and stole from him. Yep. Maybe stole's the wrong word. But he gave us a blind eye while we were putting stuff in our rig.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, it was more like a team. We teamed up. We tag teamed it. I'd be like, hey, Corey, what's this over here? Jimmy, go take that over to the truck real quick.
Exactly.
Oh, man. So, that's September's giveaway. Make sure if you guys want to be signed up for it, you sign up over on irate4x4.com. All your sign-up options are there. And then coming up September, October next month, we're going to be opening up the gift box tier again.
Yes.
So
yes, we are.
Keep on the lookout. October 1st is when that gift box tier opens up. Yeah, just giving you guys a heads up and a warning about that so you guys can start paying attention to it. And that's all the giveaway stuff.
Sounds good.
Cool. Next on the list is FNGs and birthdays.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so FNGs, which stands for Fun New Guys.
Yeah, there you go.
From the month of August, we have Mr. Creative Living Solutions.
Nice. Thanks, Mr. Creative Living Solutions.
Mr. Creative Living Solutions should have built my bar for me.
Yeah. Somebody took my advice for $10 a month. You get free advertising, for your business.
On the business. Next person in line here is Mr. Jeffrey Hamilton.
Thanks, Jeffrey.
And then, of course, last but not least, Larry Weiss.
Larry. Appreciate it, buddy.
So that's the Fun New Guys, the FNGs. And for birthdays, for September, the month of September here, we have nobody as a 1-year birthday.
Nobody.
I think this is kind of coming up. It's like March.
Right.
Where everyone's like, I'm going to wait until April to sign up.
Wait until the gift box tier. Mm-hmm. But we've got such a great giveaway going on. You think somebody would be signing up?
You would hope.
Every month at least. Some
right?
point. Mm-hmm.
2-year birthdays, we have a few.
Okay.
We've already talked about one person already. The first one is Mr. Lenny LePage.
Lenny, thank you very much.
Mr. Rock Ranger.
Yes.
Did you ever get that windshield fixed? Let me know.
Stop rolling over, buddy.
Stop rolling. Oh, man. Next one is Andre.
Andre, thanks.
I'm not
How's
sure.
The 80?
Oh, is it that Andre?
I hope so. I just said
his
it.
first name. I know, right? His
last name starts with a V.
He should bring his 80 on the mini truck 4Runner run next year at Rubithon.
With Nick.
With Nick.
Yeah.
Because Nick thinks he's going to have his up and running. I doubt it. But
right. He's going to show up with a Gladiator.
I know, right? At least he'll have some company for Power Tank. So Power Tank should bring their Gladiator, and they could be Gladiator buddies.
Yeah. They both have to have them on 29s, though.
Yes. And then last one for the 2-year birthdays is Mr. Charles Locke.
Mr. Locke. Good day.
And then for 3 years, we have Uno.
One
3-year birthday this month, and that is Mr. Reginald Miller.
Reggie Miller. Congratulations, 3 years.
Yeah, man. So congratulations to everybody, each and every one of you for the birthdays. Thank you to the FNGs for signing up, and you guys will get some birthdays coming up next year and the following year and the following year and the following year after that.
And maybe we'll be on the ball and give somebody a prize or some sort of award for 5 years. Yeah,
we'll need to look into that and set up a 5-year birthday award.
Yeah, GoFundMe account.
I like it.
Just kidding.
All right, so that's
You've
FNG's
funded us enough.
Yes, they have. Absolutely. We may be able to get Yokohama to do something fun. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Everybody gets a tire.
Everybody gets a tire. You get a tire and you get a tire.
You have to buy the other 3.
Buy 3, get 1 free. Yeah, man. So let's see. We got those out of the way. Thank you, seriously, everybody, for supporting the podcast. I think that's the number one reason why a lot of podcasts die off. You hear there's a lot of good podcasts out there, but I think that a lot of podcasts don't figure out how to make it worth their time, right? And then they just kind of get burned out. That's kind of what happened with High Sierra 4x4, Jeff and Greg, was they never quite figured out how to make it worth their time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so being able to have all the support that you guys give us makes the time of sitting down, doing all the post editing, the post production, recording, hitting the red button, going out on events and sitting down and interviewing cool guys like Steve Sasaki and Scott Wilson and some other fun interviews we have coming up here, and making the time in the schedule to do all that stuff. Get out to events and have fun. I'll tell you guys, how new Yokohama tires do on the trail, how Gear Wrench tools are. It all goes a really long way to keep us interested in doing the podcast. So seriously, thank you for the support. We wouldn't be doing it without you guys. So
no, we always say we'd be talking about doing the podcast. We'd be talking. Yeah. Now we're just hitting the red button. But there is a level of interaction that happens between the audience, you guys out there and us sitting here talking to each other. But it's fun to have people interact and talk back to us through email or through Instagram or phoning in, like we do have a message coming up here that, it's fun to hear people's opinions. It's fun to get your reactions. It's fun to hear ideas of different directions that we didn't think of.
It's fun to help fix your drain plugs.
Yes.
When they fall off on the Rubithon events.
That too.
Rod.
All the above. So, and it's fun meeting you guys out at events like Rod, and we've met Rod before, but it's just, it completes the circle, right? In a way,
totally.
It's, you guys know a lot about us. You know our life story for the last 3+
Pretty
years.
much, yeah.
And we don't know anything about you guys, but when we meet you or we talk with you or, you interact with us on Instagram, we get to know you guys more, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So thank you guys for the support. You mentioned a couple of voicemails.
Okay.
So we have a couple here.
Oh, we got more than one. I thought we only had one. Okay.
One came in while we were getting ready, and I don't know if we're going to play it.
Okay.
I don't know if we're going to air it. We'll see. But the first one, I think definitely will end up airing. He's a good guy sometimes. Little weird, but he's for the most part good.
Oh, did Chris call in?
Chris, no. Oh. We wouldn't air that one anymore. I'm just kidding. Not until they admit that they drove a Toyota.
They did.
Oh, they did admit it?
They, not on their, well, I didn't hear it on the podcast, but they showed it on Instagram.
Yeah, I want to hear it on the podcast. I need to hear it from their mouths.
They had and I know that Morphlate has had this problem, but they invited me to be a contributor on that Instagram reel.
Oh, yeah?
And it wouldn't let me accept it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's weird.
And I don't know why. And Jason called me and he's like, let's figure this out. And we went through step by step and I'm like, nothing's showing up on my end.
Interesting.
Like it says, whatever, it says something like, evaluate a review to accept or something like that. And I would click it and it just starts playing plays the episode, but doesn't ever let me accept it.
So the same thing happened on your Soup Bowl video that you posted. Yeah. It said, James invited you to be a collaborator on this post, review it. And I clicked it and it just went to play the video rather than.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I don't know why it's doing that. So
Instagram's broken.
Yep.
All right, so we have a phone call here from Mr. Bendover.
Oh, great. Ford content. Ready?
Here we go. Ford Ranger content. I think he's working on a Bronco right now, if I remember right.
New or old?
Old.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So here, let's see what Mr. Bendover has to say.
Hey, guys. Ben from Dover. Just wondering if you're going to do any snail trail boofing trail rides coming up. I'd be interested. Thanks.
What kind of boofing are we talking about?
What kind of boof are you interested in?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we can arrange to get something.
Maybe.
We'll
have to see. It depends on if I can fix my Toyota. Yeah. Because it is fucked right now.
We'll discuss that a little later.
Yeah, we'll get there in a little bit. Next one is from Raj.
Raj
with customer service. I don't know if we're going to air this one. We may cut this one out. Let's see.
I sure hope it's a car sales thing.
We'll find out.
Hello, this is Raj with the customer service. I heard about the second podcast. I found it. It's the Limp Runner podcast, a number one podcast of all. Thank you. Come again.
See, told you guys the second podcast is out there somewhere. We just got to find it.
Yep. It's hidden. It's only on one platform.
Yep. What is the platform?
I'm not going to say. Because then somebody needs to be on multiple platforms to be able to search us, or one person happens to be on that single platform to find it.
Yeah. All right, man. Cool. So that's the voicemails for this week.
Awesome.
Thank you guys for calling in. Bend over. We'll let you know when the boofing trail ride is.
Event.
The boofing event is. And Raj might be in for it too. So
probably.
Oh,
and
man.
You know where to find me, Ben, if you ever want to hang out and boof together.
He'd be down for it.
We can boof around our Fords.
Yes. Oh man. Anyways, let's see. What else do we got here?
Not a whole lot. I say let's talk about Rubithon.
All right. Rubithon.
Yeah.
How was Rubithon for you?
It was good. I had a great time. It was my first time ever going to Rubithon. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't quite sure what to expect. Mm-hmm. And I think for some reason I signed up as 2 drivers.
Yeah, that was weird.
Because I got 2 T-shirts.
Yep.
I got 2 driver tickets. Mm-hmm. I got
2 dinner tickets.
2 dinner tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not... You know what I think I did? Is I signed up... Like, I thought I needed more... Like, I thought there was going to be more than 1 meal. I thought there was going to be 2 meals. And so I was like, oh, I need 2 meals.
Gotcha.
And so I signed up for, like, another meal.
And then they took how many drivers there were based on how many meals you purchased, maybe?
I don't know. I'm not sure. And so... but I probably paid for an extra... I don't know. I'm not sure.
There was somebody else, Scott Wilson. He did that, but he had like three drivers or something in his packet. He goes... Yeah, I think I was thinking that it was how many dinners there were supposed to be. Like, there's 3 nights, so there's 3 dinners, and so I signed up for 1 dinner per night, and I think that's kind of the same thing that happened.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So, but I did order because they gave me an option for having 2 shirts, and so I signed up for a shirt for myself, and I was like, "Hey, assistant, do you want a shirt? Do you want one of them? I get an extra one." Mm-hmm. And so I got a size for her, and mine. I don't. Did you don't like event shirts?
I don't like event shirts.
And so, did you even look at it? Like, it's a nice shirt, but did you size it?
I did not size it or anything. I just got a men's medium, or I don't remember, small or medium, something like that.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
for the secretary.
Got it. Yeah. So I got a large for me, and I threw it in the laundry just to wash it, and then was folding my laundry, and it's a solid, like the shoulder seam is like a solid inch larger than my other the large that was below it.
Oh, interesting.
Like, and I know shirts come in a variety of sizes, but I was like, oh, maybe this thing's gonna be big. And then the assistant I gave it to her, and she threw it on her pile, and her small was at like half an inch or a quarter inch smaller than the shirt that was below it also. Interesting. And so so there was a weird like size to whatever brand shirt they got. Just not normal for whatever shirt happened to be underneath that we were measuring it against. But I haven't tried it on. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'll wear it next year for the next event. Yeah. So
nice. I
do want to say though that it's a heavy shirt.
Mm-hmm. It's a heavy cotton.
Yeah, and personally, I'm not a fan of those. But the Cruise Moab shirt is super comfy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they did a different brand or different style for that one, and I really like. I wear that shirt often because it's a nice, comfy shirt. I don't know what kind it was, but yeah. So it was kind of. It makes sense, but it's all Toyota
TLCA.
Land Cruiser Association,
Toyota Cruising Land Association.
Yeah, it's all TLCA. So to some extent, you would assume that they have the same stuff, but it's different events hosted or ran by different people. Mm-hmm. In different locations across the nation, so it makes sense that they use different vendors. Yeah. So,
all I noticed about the shirts was that it was a memorial year for a fella named Phil Pasiek. Pasiek, P-A-C-I-E-K.
Good old Phil.
Yeah. Apparently he was a big part of the MOG crew that helps bring all the supplies down into Rubicon Springs down Cadillac each year. Yeah. And he'd been doing it for years and years and years. And he passed away during COVID.
Yeah, so, unfortunately.
This year was a memorial year for Phil. They were, I'm pretty sure they had his ashes, and they were spreading them up at the top of the waterfall.
That's what I heard as well.
Yeah. So Mike and I were hanging out in the waterfall, and then all of a sudden everybody got really quiet, and a big semicircle formed, and they were lifting down, reaching handfuls of something out of a bucket and throwing it down the waterfall. And we were like, what is going on?
And you guys were below the waterfall?
Yep.
So you're getting rained ashes on you?
No, we were up above.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what was going on. They hung a memorial plaque for him down in the Mog Camp area, and so it was a very somber afternoon when the memorial all was going on. But that was, I don't know, later in the week. We started the trip on Wednesday night.
I mean, I drove up to the chalet in the dark.
I did too.
So, yeah.
What time did you end up getting to the chalet?
I think I got up there about 10:30.
Okay.
Somewhere around then. I think I told Steve that I wasn't planning on being up there until 9 to 10, and I think I got there about 10:30.
Okay.
And you didn't show up until like midnight 30.
Yeah, midnight 30, somewhere in that range. So it was funny though, because I drove by and like I kind of was like trying to see if I could see any lights up on the parking area above the chalet, and I didn't really see any lights up there at all.
Right.
And so I just kind of kept going. I was like, whoop, I'm just going to go down and camp in the spillway and wait for everyone to show up in the morning. And then you reached out over the ham radio.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, there's Jimmy. He must know that I'm around somewhere, check it in to see if I'm coming still or what. And you were like, hey, you just passed us. I was like, oh, you guys are at the chalet. So I turned around, went back up to the chalet, and it was you and Dimitri and Jesse and Jack.
Oh,
was the dog's not Jackson? I forget what the dog's name is now. Dimitri's dog.
I think it was Jackson. Was it not?
Was it?
I don't remember.
Anyway, so Dimitri's dog, his little rat dog, little Yorkie. Yeah. You guys were all hanging out up there. So I showed up and we had some beers and chatted a little bit and then went to bed. I just put my cot out behind the rig and slept under the stars, and it was really gorgeous night to sleep under the stars. And the stars were super clear, which is pretty cool.
That whole area up there has the best like view of the sky at night ever, because there's nothing out there. I mean, the closest thing might be Georgetown.
Maybe, yeah.
So, and not a lot of light comes from Georgetown. No. I mean, I guess maybe the most light would probably come from South Lake Tahoe.
Yeah, probably South Lake Tahoe, maybe Truckee, Reno, but that's more northeast than South Lake.
So there's not a big city anywhere super close.
No.
And so you get a great light show.
So that's what we did on Wednesday night.
Yeah, we were up until like 1 or something like that, or maybe even 1. Was it
1 to 1:30? Somewhere
1 to 1:30, and I was like, guys, I'm going to bed. We got to be up early, and like I'm down to hang out and chill and relax, but we got to wake up.
Yeah,
like the later we stay up, the earlier mornings are going to be.
Yep.
So we were supposed to be down in the spillway at like 7. I think was the...
So yeah, what I was told was wheels up at 7. And we've got to get everybody down there and check in all the participants and everything. So I was like, we need to be down there like 6.
Right.
To be ready for this.
Yeah, well, your thing was, I think, so we were supposed to be wheels up at 7. And you're like, I want to drive down there and make breakfast and make coffee everything down at the spillway. Like, I just want to quick pack here, drive straight down there, and then we'll relax and get breakfast down in the spillway.
Yep.
And so we assumed that, or we were told, wheels up at 7.
Yep.
So we got down there just shortly.
Right after 6.
Right after 6.
15 maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And made some coffee and put our burritos on our engines and relaxed for a little bit. And then I think later we found out that it was supposed to be wheels up at 7:30.
Yeah.
And we didn't really even leave until about 8.
8:15, yeah.
But check-in went smooth. Driver's meeting was great. A lot of fun watching the rigs come in and trying to figure out who's who and who's in our group, or who's renegading, or who's just waiting for other rigs. Because I kid you not, when Senna pulled up, I was like, he's got to be in another group.
He's in the wagon run or something. Yeah.
He's not hanging out with us. And then he came up and he was like, do you know who Scott Wilson is?
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck.
So describe Let's just go through a few of the rigs, not Cinna's yet.
Okay.
A few of the rigs that were there. Describe them and what was on our 4Runner mini truck run.
Our trail leader, Scott, who we spoke to in the last episode, has a 1988 4Runner that he has a four-wheel drive underground.
Four-wheel underground.
Four-wheel underground three-link
kit.
kit on the front. He's rocking 37s.
Diamond axle.
Diamond axles. Yeah, 529s.
On RRIs.
Yep, on RRIs, front and rear. Great rig.
Beautiful rig, yeah.
Wheeled really well. The Steve from Power Tank brought his JL.
On 40s.
On 40s. We had probably the biggest rig in our group was Mike's first gen 4Runner on 44s.
44 pit bulls, yeah.
44 pit bulls. Full width that have been, I think, turned down a little ways, or he had negative backspacing.
It's some negative backspacing
on his wheels to keep it a little bit narrower.
He's about 88-inch track width, outside tire.
He has an LS3 under the hood, and I don't know what he did for. He has an Atlas, or no?
He's got the Behemoth or Colossal drivetrain, the Behemoth Dana 300 with the an underdrive on it, 2.28 underdrive on it.
So just nuts.
Yeah.
Let's see. We had two fourth gen 4Runners. We had Dimitri's fourth gen 4Runner, the Moscow Mule that he's been building, and then we had a Cali tuned. I think it was Cali tuned, right? Fourth gen 4Runner that was like a foot taller than Dimitri's.
Yeah.
On 40s.
On 40s, yep.
Yeah, and a solid axle swapped.
Yep. Super Duty axles underneath it, 3-linked in the front.
Yeah. And then let's see.
Kermit, that was, Kermit is and Bobcat.
And then we had Rod's rig.
Yep.
Rod had a first gen 4Runner.
Second gen.
You're right. Second gen 4Runner, 35-inch tires, Toyota front axle, 1 T-case with a 4.7 gear in it. And 488s
in the
diff.
He says it's 488s in the diff, so I don't know about that.
Yeah.
He claims it is, though. So.
Yep. And then let's see.
We had
a Jeep. We had
buggy.
a Jeep buggy that was freaking rad.
That was pretty damn cool. Yeah.
It was low. It had trailing arms that were curved upwards.
Yep. I really like the way those trailing arms are set up.
Yeah. Because normally you see these trailing arms that like curve down, but these were flipped. And so they went up. So just to give you an immense more ground clearance. And I was like, damn, that thing's badass.
Yep.
Full widths, front and rear. He was on 43s?
I think he was on 42s or 43s, something like that.
It was huge. That thing was sweet.
Yeah.
What
so
else?
anyways, that kind of gives you an idea of pretty much the rigs that were on our run.
Yeah.
And then Senna shows up.
And then Senna.
What was it? Senna?
Senna was in a GX 2020 GX 460.
Yes, sir.
Which is like an equivalent to a fourth gen 4Runner?
Essentially, yeah.
Somewhere around there. And he was
slightly different body style, but yeah. Drivetrain is equivalent to a 4 gen. He was on
315? No, bigger than that. He was almost 40. He was almost 35s. He had big 34-inch tires.
Yeah.
Locked front and rear.
Just got the lockers done at Stellarbuilt.
In the front. And gearing in the diffs, right?
Yep.
And a bunch of skid plates and rock armor and some basic bumpers.
Yeah, but a clean vehicle. He had a topo map wrap on it, vinyl wrap on the rig.
Yep.
It was a really good looking vehicle. And when he showed up on our run, and he's got the smallest tires, I mean, him and Rod really, but I was just like, are you sure you're on the right run?
Yeah.
You sure about that? Yes, I am. Are you sure?
Yeah, kind of.
But anyways, so we're all looking at each other. We're like, well, we were really hoping to like make it from Loon to the Springs by like 2 to 3 p.m. And we're looking at Cinna in the group. We're like, it's going to be a little bit longer now.
Yeah. No offense to Cinna, but
but this is what I love about it, though, is everybody had this notion that Cinna was going to be by far the weak link of the group. He was going to hold us all up all day long. We're going to have to be pulling him left and right. He's going to be beating up his vehicle. And really, he killed it.
No, he did great.
He
did
didn't
fantastic.
really hold the group up a whole lot at all. Like, we
No.
still came in about the same time we came in last year.
Exactly.
And so that's why I was like, yeah, everybody was kind of like looking at him when he showed up, and we're like, oh, we'll see how this goes. And by the time we got to the Springs, we're like, dude, he's been awesome.
Yeah, you did great.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we kind of talked about it in the last episode, but there was a point at which when we were going up Little Sluice, he's like, I want to try it. And then, Scott's like, you should probably go to the bypass.
Yeah.
And then he chose to do the shelf line with you, right?
Instead of the full bypass, yeah.
Which is still a fun little line. And so, and he did fine on that.
Yep.
So, we had it was a great, he did fantastic. And we had a good group of guys that were all willing to help out for anybody that asked, and we talked about that in the last episode, that there's this great culture in that run.
Yeah.
Where you're just out there to have fun, and we're out there to wheel, and we're one of the only, if not the only, run that goes from the spillway to the Springs in one day.
Correct. Yep.
And so we've got to keep moving. We got to, get there, but we all want to have fun, and we want to help each other as much as whenever anybody asks for help.
Yep.
And so, I think he did fantastic.
I agree.
Really, really good. He did better than I thought he was going to do.
Totally did better than I thought.
And I will say it now because there's an award that goes out for the newest rig, and he won it. He had the newest rig out of anybody that was out there.
Yeah.
The 2020 rig.
Yeah.
Deciding to go out on the Rubicon.
2020 Lexus, bringing it out.
Yeah, exactly. Nuts.
Yeah, it was cool. The trip in was fairly uneventful. We stopped at a soup bowl.
We did.
To let people play on soup.
Yeah.
We stopped in Little Sluice, had a little bit of a couple holdups in Little Sluice, and playing around with different lines there. Other than that, we motored through pretty much the whole time. Didn't really have any issues. No big stops, really.
Yeah.
So
no, we had just a few of the obstacles. We just sort of clumped together, and then when we spread back out, and kind of, took off. We did have an issue at the top at the margarita tree.
That's right. Yes.
Dude. So we were just past that S turn.
Yeah. Coming out of Buck.
Coming out of Buck. This is just really rocky, like two really sharp turns into each other. And then there's sort of like this rocky climb on the way out. And I'm up at the margarita tree, and Rod comes up behind me, and then all of a sudden you're like, hey guys, there's a lot of oil on the ground.
Yeah.
Are any of you guys missing a drain plug?
Yeah.
And I hop out, and I'm like, well, I welded my rear one, and I don't have one in my front. So I look at Rod, and I'm like, oh, crud.
Rod, you got a lot of oil coming out of your front diff.
Yeah, he didn't at that time. He didn't have a whole lot of oil coming out of his front diff anymore. But
yeah,
so I gave him a diaper. We threw that on the ground. We started like assessing the problem, and I think you guys were up and kind of looking at the rig, trying to figure it out. And I was like, I'm gonna walk down and see if I can find the drain plug.
Yeah.
And so I walked down, and I was like, oh, here's a little oil. Here's a little oil. Here's a little more oil. Oh, here's a lot of oil. And I walked down, and then there's just one rock.
A little pointed rock right in the middle.
Sort of rock with like a shelf on it, and a drain plug sitting straight up on top of the rock. And I was like, oh, there's the drain plug. So I grabbed the drain plug. We go back up to the rigs. You pull out a file, and you guys try to start. There was one section on there that was pretty messed up right at the start. And so you guys were filing that, and then I went and grabbed the biochemical stuff and went down and started cleaning up all the oil that was down there, and spraying the chemical stuff on it, and grabbing some of the oil, and just kind of cleaning that situation up that was down there, because there was a lot. There was a quart of oil or something.
It was enough where it was like a sudden onset, and I hadn't heard anybody else mention oil over the radio, so I was like, it has to have been from somebody right in front of me, because otherwise I would hope that our group is all willing to help and jump out. We're like, ooh, repair needs to get made, let's do it. And nobody had said anything, so I was like, This is an alarming amount of oil.
Yes, there was a lot.
Yeah.
So I don't know who came up with the idea. I think it was Rod, because we were able to sort of thread the nut, the one that came out. We were sort of able to thread it in, and it wasn't working too well. But then Rod was like, well, I'm just going to take the fill plug out because I have to fill it anyway, and I'll use that one as the drain plug. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah. That's smart. You know, we were all concerned about how are we going to get this back in?
Yeah.
So he ended up pulling the fill plug out, throwed that in the bottom of his axle, threaded in fine. We filled the axle back up with oil, and then he put the sort of damaged one after doing some filing into the top and to just hold the oil in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he didn't. The rest of the way, there wasn't an issue.
Yeah,
no problem.
As far as I know, he didn't have any other leaks coming out of like the fill plug or anything.
No,
so
not that I know of either. So.
Yeah. This was though the second drain plug I've personally seen come out on the trail this year. I think.
Oh yeah.
I don't know the one. The third gen 4Runner, was that last year?
That was last year.
Gotcha. Okay.
That was the Halloween run.
Oh, that was the October one.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyways, I saw that one. I saw Rod's drop out. And then Hussman was out on Fordyce, I think, this weekend with the buns.
Yep.
And somebody in their group lost a drain plug out on Fordyce. And so now I'm kind of like, I'm throwing extra drain plugs into my spare stuff now.
Right.
Yeah. Everybody, check your drain plug.
Tighten your drain plugs.
Yes.
And check them every day if yours is at the bottom, or weld it closed, you know?
Yep.
Something. I don't know. But yeah, I think, and we'll talk about another item that we might need to start carrying with us here in a little bit. But besides that, there wasn't really any issues wheeling into the Springs. We got in about 6 o'clock. We all pretty much were dirty and went and jumped in the river.
Yep.
And then came back, and then you and I cooked tacos for the committee. I don't know, the trail crew.
The trail crew.
The trail crew. There was five or six.
There's supposed to be, I think, 5 or 6 vehicles that were part of the trail crew. And so we planned on about 10 to 12 maybe people.
Right.
And it seemed like everybody in our camp ended up coming over and having the tacos.
Yeah. We weren't cooking for the group. We were supposed to be cooking for which I don't know how you fix. I mean, maybe we should have kicked over by Scott's corner, but I still think if Scott and Dan, not Dan, who was his passenger?
Scott's passenger?
I forgot what.
Phil.
Scott and Phil. There was Nick and his wife. I can't remember her name. Dan wasn't trail crew, but he was kind of...
He was in it. He was supposed to be doing desserts for everybody for each of the meals.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, because he kind of was late to the meal prepping emails. Yeah. And so we're like, or Nick was. Nick had the stuff. So Dan cooked all of Scott's tri-tip on Wednesday night.
Oh, okay.
So all the trail... We
weren't there for that.
Yeah.
And then Steve and Tyler. Right? Yep. So there was... How many was that? I put my hands down.
I think there was 6, 7, 8 people.
Eight,
with you
and I.
Yeah. So 10?
10. There was 10 people. And then there was, I don't know how many people in our group, but yeah. So when those 10, like when the leaders of the group would go in a corner, I think everybody would have followed anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
And regardless, we cooked right and smack dab in the middle of our campground.
Yep.
And so, everybody, we started cooking and everybody's like, what are you guys doing? You know, we brought chips and salsa out, and the trail leaders were all there, and so everybody's like coming over. And so, we pretty much ended up cooking for the entire camp to some extent.
Which worked out. We had just enough food to do it all, too.
Yeah, barely.
So it was nice to not have leftovers and have to like rebag leftovers and everything. It was just, just clean the dishes and we're good to go.
Yeah, there was a little bit of Spanish rice left. And that was, maybe some beans? I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
Not a whole lot. Power Tank Tyler and I were like hitting the hot sauce and like chips and rice and beans into the evening. We kept going.
I liked how on the way in, whenever you were talking to Tyler's over the radio, you're like PT Tyler or Radio Tyler.
Yeah.
To figure stuff out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We had to distinguish the difference.
So here's my question for you.
Okay.
You did some fun things with your tires before going on the trip.
Yes, I did.
Do you want to talk about what you did and how your experience with the tires was?
Sure. I mean, since this episode's going fairly long, I'll keep it fairly brief. But I installed inner bead locks into my tires on Bobcat, and so I have steely wheels, normal like kind of plain steely wheels, and I wanted to air down farther. And because one of the things is I've been airing down on the Toyos to like 4 psi. But we got new tires.
We did.
We got Yokohamas.
Yep.
And I got 37 12.5 MTs from Yokohama, and they're load range D, so they're less of a load range than the Toyos were. So I was concerned that I was concerned where my air down point was going to be, and if I was going to be able to air down low enough that where I would like to be, but still be on non-beadlock wheels. So I went with Inner Airco. It's they're set up similar to what Coyote Inner Beadlocks is, but it's a one-man show out of like Michigan. And I wanted to support the little guys or the small businesses out there, and so I went with him. And besides the fact that he didn't answer my email fairly promptly, but he has his phone number on his website, so I was able to call him, because I had a question on where I should drill the hole through my wheel.
Yeah.
Because he says you should put the hole
for the valve stem
for the inner beadlock. Yeah. And so, thanks. So I needed to drill another hole for that inner beadlock, and in the instructions it says measure to the middle, and that's where you want to put your hole. Well, right there. Giggity. Is where the inner section of my wheel welds to the outside of the wheel.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I can't do it there.
Yeah.
I could do it maybe like a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch over, but I'm not sure if the air for the Morphle air chuck would fit onto it.
Yeah, because it'd be
it'd be right against the spokes of the wheel. And then this like angle happens where it like has this angle that comes down to the actual surface of the wheel. So I was like, I could weld it. I could drill a hole through that and it would be at an angle. Is that an issue? Or should I go about 1.5 inches over total from the middle and drill that hole right on the flat surface down? And so I put like paint marks on the wheel. And so I could talk about it. And I sent him an email maybe on Thursday. He didn't respond on Friday. He went all weekend. I didn't get an email back. And I waited for a chunk of the day on Monday, and I ended up just calling him. Yeah. And he answered, and he's like, yeah, I saw your email. Sorry I didn't get back to you. I've been busy. And I was like, cool, well, what should I do?
Yeah.
And so he said, I would drill the farthest out hole, the one about 1.5 inches off center. And he said, if you notice, which I didn't at the time, the valve stem's not exactly in the center. It's a little over. So he said, just turn the tube, either outside in or inside out. Or how do I say that? There's a blue line on one side of the tube, and I made sure that blue line was always on the outside of the wheel, not to the inside of the wheel.
Okay.
Because that made the valve stem was a little closer to the offset that I wanted. Other than that, So I took my tires up to Schultz's tire up in Auburn and had them pull the Toyos off. And then I took the wheels down to my place, to the shop. And then I had a hell of a time. I talked about it. I had a hell of a time getting that bead on. Eventually did it. Had to use the cherry picker to pull the wheel through.
Yeah.
It was, there you see videos of people just slamming them in, and I tried that, and it did not work. It was bouncing all over the place. I get it like halfway in, but couldn't push it the rest of the way in, and I was muscling it.
Mine were a lot tougher to put in, put the rim into the tire than any tire I've had to do before as well. So I was still able to do it using soap and standing on it, but it was definitely tougher than any tire I've done in the past.
Well, that makes me feel a little better, I guess. So then I put the interlock system in, and then you put the tube in, and you stick the valve stem through the hole, and then you shove the interlock system on the inside of the bead, but the tire was still out. So then I took all the tires up to Schultz's again, and they reset the bead and inflated the tubes. And then I took them back, and I asked him not. It was funny because I asked him not to inflate the tubes, and he's like, "Well, what about the tire?" I'm like, "If you want, like, go ahead."
Yeah.
And they inflated the wrong valve stem, is what ended up happening. So I took everything back, and then there's a system of how to properly inflate the tubes. And my guess is they just took it up to like 30 and left it. Mm-hmm. But you're supposed to go 10 psi, 15 psi, 20 psi, 30 psi. And then let it out, and then 30 psi again, and leave it at 30.
Okay.
Anyways, long story short, I did all that, put all the wheels back on the tire, and when we got to the staging, I aired the tires down to 10 psi and left the inner bead locks at 30.
Okay. So that's where you ended up running the trail at?
Until Soup Bowl. Because I wanted to air down a little bit. I felt like I was in a okay spot, but I wanted to air down a little bit more just to change it up. A little bit more
traction?
Just, to a little bit more traction, to let it a little more out. I felt like it was okay, but I felt like I could get to a better spot.
Okay.
So I wanted to test. I wanted to play with it because it was my first time ever wheeling with him. So I aired down to 9 at Soup Bowl.
Okay.
And I actually really liked that pressure.
At 9?
At 9.
That's what you ran the rest of the weekend on, right?
Yeah, I left it that the rest of the weekend, 9 PSI on the tires, and I didn't have any problems.
And you normally, in the Toyos, you used to run at 6 PSI in the rocks?
5 to 6.
5 to 6, okay.
Yeah, but these are a different load range.
Yep.
So I don't know exactly how to relate those. I can't say I was at 6 on these tires and 9 on those tires, and they're the same, but the load ranges are different.
Yeah, in theory, the load ranges are different. It's a softer compound in the Yokohamas.
The Toyos were wider.
The Toyos were wider, and your Toyos were 12, 13 years old, and the Yokohamas are...
They were 2011.
Yeah, and the Yokohamas were March 2022.
Yeah.
Like
exactly
3 months old.
Right.
So
and the wider tires also help hold onto the rim a little better, so I was able to go a little bit lower.
Yeah.
But I don't have to really worry about that now.
Yeah. So other than... And you walked right up Soup Bowl, no problems like you typically have. Or like you typically don't have. And the rest of the trip you did really cool too. There was a couple times I was behind you, and I would just kind of watch you taking some fun and interesting lines, and you just walk right up them, which is really funny to watch because we have Mike with the LS3 on 44s, and then we've got Dimitri with the Moscow Mule, the 4.7 straight piped on 40-inch Trepidors.
Yeah.
And they would get to an obstacle and they'd sit there and, give it a couple goes and it wasn't going, and then they would just let the engine loose. And then they get up the obstacle.
Right.
And then you come up and you're just like, up you go.
Yeah. We were at Tree Line at one point. And when Larry Yoda Man got up to us, and Dimitri was going up that line, and we were telling Larry about Dimitri's build.
Yeah.
And then we're like, just wait a second, he'll open it up.
Yeah.
And he was trying the tree, like the middle line, let's say it. Not the far left on the far side of the trees, but the one next to the clump of trees, not the right side that a lot of people go up, and not actual tree line. So it was in the middle. He was going and going and going, and eventually let it loose and made... That truck is loud.
Yes,
straight piped. It is loud. And Larry's like, "What's he got in there?"
Yeah.
But I think that's the same engine Larry has in his.
I think so too. Yeah. The 2UZ.
Yeah.
The 4.7 liter.
And so then I think Mike went, or Mike went first, then Dimitri, then Larry, and even Larry gave it the goose to get up there. And I was talking to the guys that were just that were camping there.
Yeah.
I said, "I'm just gonna putt up that thing. You watch." And I drove up and I gave it a small Moad bump at the bottom. And I just walked the rest of the way.
Yeah.
And then later, few days after the event, I got a message from one of the guys. He's like,
really?
"Great meeting you out there. Here's a video of you just crawling up tree line, unlike everybody else."
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah. So it's pretty. I'll have to share that video out there. But Yeah, it was fun. Just crawling. So you were behind me for a while. So my question is, how did the tires look bulge-wise? Did they seem well?
I was never close enough to you to see how your tires are folding over stuff, but by watching how easily everything hooked up on all the rocks, I think that's a good pressure for you.
I felt 9 was fairly comfortable. I was slightly concerned that they might be folding too much, which I just need to throw myself in a hard obstacle and see what the tires do.
Yeah.
And get a better, and hop out and look at them to some extent, right? Because we would the goal was to move. This trip was there was some fun time, but it wasn't like we needed to get to
There's a lot of distance
springs.
to travel when you go into the springs all the way in one day.
But the tires were fantastic.
Yeah. I remember there was one spot at Revelement Hill. As you're coming into Buck Island, you're getting around the lake up to the dam.
Yeah.
And Revelement Hill is also known as Little Supple, apparently, by some people.
I know it as that one, but...
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's just like this double ledge that you just have to hit the rev limit on a lot of times. And that's where people like to go and play at nighttime in Buck Island. And you picked, I think, the hardest line on Revelement Hill.
I've never been able to make that line that I drove up.
Yeah. And you kind of sat there for a couple, 10, 15 seconds, kind of spinning the tires and, backing up a little bit and then trying a slightly different line. And once you were on the right line, you putted right up it. And I was like, that was actually really impressive to watch from back where I was.
Yeah. I needed, because you come right out of the creek to hit that obstacle. And so your tires are wet. So I literally just drove straight, got on the obstacle and spun my tires till I thought they were dry. And then I backed up and went driver, which I normally go passenger.
I would not have guessed driver would have gotten you up that.
Yeah, I normally go the way that I took rod.
Yeah.
So I went up driver just to see what would happen, and it went up.
Yep.
And I've never been able to go up that way.
Yeah. So it was pretty cool watching the tires hook up there at Revelement Hill, because I've never seen a vehicle make it up that line before either. And then I went up the same line Rod went up, the double ledge on the right. And I kind of gave myself a foot to kind of give it a little Moab bump, but I was expecting to give it a Moab bump and then have the tires spinning and slide back down into the double ledge and then just kind of work my way over until I could either walk it across the double ledge and then up. But when I gave it the bump, it just hooked up and went right up. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Never mind.
They've got grip.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm really happy with the tire. I don't know if it's because it's new.
That's what I'm wondering.
So
about.
we'll have to report back in a matter of months or maybe next season.
Yeah.
And say, well, we'll report on how they do in snow.
Yep.
And then in a matter of months for next wheeling season, after they've been sitting a little while, we'll report a year in and tell you if we're still happy with these things or not.
Yeah. Exactly. So I've already had a few people asking that they are saying they've been in the market for some tires and were interested in getting some of the Geolanders. And so we are working on setting up a sales channel with Yokohama for the podcast listeners.
Yes.
So hang tight for that. I think we have a couple of good ideas. It's just a matter of getting all the paperwork and details we figured out for it, right?
Yeah, we're setting up a new account with another company, with a company that we've referred to in the past, and we just need to get all the ducks in a row business-wise on that end, and then we'll be more than happy to send people over and hope you guys get some tires if you want them.
Yep. So cool. First day trip in, everything was great. I had fun playing around on the new tires in the Rubicon. Yeah. This is my second trip on the tires, and they did phenomenally. I was very happy with them.
I was stoked.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, like the Toyos are good, and they're old. They're probably tired. They worked well for Bobcat and what I had, but I could tell that the Yokohamas were better. And like I sort of said, I don't know if it's just new rubber that made it it's like new shoes. Like I can run so much faster.
Yeah.
Because you hear that little grippy noise, and after a while it just loses it. So, but I was pleasantly satisfied with those tires and wheeling in for
Nice.
sure. There was the tires were smaller because I'm used to 13.5s over the 12.5s that I have.
Yeah.
And so there's a few times that I think fell or was missing rocks that I thought I would hit.
Yeah.
Just because the rig's set up ever so slightly differently.
Yeah.
But
Well, cool, man. So that was Thursday, getting into the springs. We did tacos, and then Friday came around, and it's a kind of the free day for us.
yeah, it's a lazy day.
Lazy day, which is so awesome to have down there for that
Everybody
event.
else is wheeling from Buck into the springs, and we're already there. So we got to watch a lot of rigs come in and hang out and go swimming and relax. And then we ended up recording 2 podcasts that day.
Yep.
We recorded the one with Steve and Scott that aired on Monday, and we recorded the episode that will be coming out on
This
the
coming up
upcoming
Monday. Yep. Yep. So you guys get to hear that one. That was a fun day. I love the free day. That's one of the things I love about, one of the other things I love about the 4Runner mini truck run is that free day down in the springs. And then Friday
In
night,
a way, on that run, the 4Runner mini truck run, you get 2 free days.
kinda,
Because the
yeah.
event, everybody wheels in like by Friday, and Saturday is a day at the springs.
Yeah.
You hang out. There's things going on at the springs, but when you do the 4Runner mini truck, you get Friday as a free day, and then Saturday also as a free day. So it was the most time I've ever spent at the springs.
Yeah. 2 days in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was fun. I think Friday,
Go ahead.
I took some people out on a hike.
Yep. That's what I was just about to bring up.
Gotcha. So the Stone Cabin hike down there, which is really neat. Some people hadn't seen the Stone Cabin before. And
I've never seen it.
You've
before.
never seen it before?
No, I don't
Oh.
normally hang out at the springs.
That's true. Yeah. So-
Normally it's like get to the springs, like wheel in a day, hang out a little bit maybe, or wheel to Buck, wheel to springs, and wheel all the way back. Or yeah, normally I've never really hung out at the springs.
Gotcha.
So this was the first time that I spent 2 days. I had 2 free days at the springs.
Yeah. So what do you think of the Stone Cabin and the Stone Cabin?
It's really cool. Yeah, I think it's a really neat piece of history to know that, because I think we talked about it in episode 220, where there was a surveyor out in the area back in the
50, early
40,
50s, early 50s, late 40s. Yeah.
somewhere in there, and he spent so much time out there that he ended up building himself a house.
Yeah.
He found this huge rock and then started piling other rocks around or next to that rock, and used the big rock as sort of a heat sink
There's
for
a
the
thermal
house,
mass.
a thermal mass. So the rock would get hot and it would help hold the heat inside the house, or the rock would be cool
During summer.
during the summer and help, keep the house a little cooler. But it's just a 1-room house with a rock, 3 walls and this big rock in a way. Actually 2 walls, because the other one's against the mountainside.
Kind of up against the cliffside.
So it's this big rock and a cliffside, and then 2 walls and a metal roof. That's really about it, a porch. But it's cool to know that it's there. It's cool to know the history behind it. It's neat to see it and experience it. I would be happy to take people back there again if they've never been there, but I'm not really too interested in going back myself since I've seen it already.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, it's a really cool kind of history part. My highlight of that hike was while we were hiking down there, John Arns and Glenn were like having a history lesson over the radio, over the repeater, the 805.
Right. Yeah.
And so I was paying more attention to that than you guys kind of showed up we all got to the cabin. You guys all immediately went in the cabin. I just sat around outside listening to the history lesson going on over the 805 repeater.
Yeah, that's
which was fun. So that was the highlight for me, getting down there and kind of just sharing that with everybody.
Yeah.
I love sharing experiences, right? Being out there and showing everybody what some cool stuff around that area is. So that was a lot of fun. We did that Friday. Some other people hiked up to the top of the ridge across the river from Rubicon Springs. So they went up and did that hike, and we pretty much just hung around Friday.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, we did the interviews on Saturday, huh?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Friday was much more relaxed than I thought it was, now that I'm thinking in hindsight. People went swimming, people went hiking. We relaxed.
We worked on the Jeep buggy.
We worked on the Jeep buggy. It had a fuel leak.
It had the fuel pump. One of the AN fittings into the fuel pump was loose, but we weren't sure what it was. And the fuel pump is up on the rail, the frame rail. So we just pulled the fuel pump down real quick, and turns out the fitting was loose. And then his rear axle was like leaking a lot of gear oil out of the full float spindle hubs, the drive flange on the ends, right? And so we were like, well, yeah, we didn't even like look into it at all. We just kind of put it in a level spot for Thursday. And then Friday we dug into it. And apparently the guy had just gotten his rig back from a shop, and the shop didn't tighten down like anything.
Oh, dang.
Like it wasn't even finger tight. The bolts on the spindle hubs,
They were loose?
They were all loose. And so that's why it was leaking gear oil everywhere. So we've got some RTV and made new gaskets for his spindle hubs, the full float in the rear there, and put everything back in and cleaned everything up, pulled his axle shafts out and inspected him. And that took up about an hour to do all that for the fuel pump and the rear hubs.
Also, there was some shenanigans happening on Rod's rock slider.
Oh, that's right.
At some point, during property line, he came down on a rock and bent his passenger rock slider up so high he couldn't open his passenger door.
Yep. Same thing happened to my rear bumper in property line.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Came down on my rear bumper hard, and it shifted over my rear. The entire rear bumper shifted to the passenger side about 1.5 inches.
Wow.
And so I couldn't get my rear tailgate open. I had to figure out how to get it bent back.
Yeah.
So I can get my tailgate open.
So yeah, a lot of free time, a lot of fun to be had.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that free time down there.
Yep. Saturday, just to kind of keep moving things along here. Saturday we had the 2 interviews.
Yep.
That we'll have. We already showed one. We're airing the second one that's coming up Monday. And then we had dinner, which the dinner was fantastic.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes on at the Springs on Saturday. There's RC rock crawling that tour guide Taco actually runs. There's a competition there. There's a cornhole competition.
Yeah, and horseshoes.
Or is it just horseshoes?
I know it's at least horseshoes. I don't know if there's cornhole as well.
And maybe cornhole was at another event. I think it was at Trek.
Okay.
Cornhole was at Trek.
Gotcha.
Horseshoes was at the Rubithon. There was something else. Oh, there was a winch winching class going on. And then I feel like there was another paper.
There was 3 papers. I forget what the last one was though.
Well, RC.
Oh, there you
horseshoes go. And the winch discussion.
Yep.
So there's just a lot of things happening in the area, a lot of socializing, going and seeing everybody's rig, walking around. We went and talked to George Esther from Valley Hybrids Land Cruisers for a little while. We did the 2 interviews. And then dinner was at 3:30.
That's what the posted time was. It didn't get served until 4:15, but everyone was like, I just had a lunch an hour ago.
Right.
What?
They even said, Ross even said, we're going to make dinner later next year.
Yeah.
And then so they had tri-tip or chicken meal, and then some salad and some bread and some beans. The beans were phenomenal. The beans were so good.
Yeah, the beans were good. I really like that salad too.
The salad was great. Yeah. Everything tasted great. I had the chicken. A lot of people had the tri-tip. And then afterwards, and then they had a few different styles of drinks. But then afterwards, they had the raffle. Yep. They had the kids raffle first. They had the adult raffle, and then they did the driver's raffle, or was it driver's raffle and then
they pulled the main ticket, I think, for the driver's raffle or for like the big main prize or something first, and then they did everything.
Got it. Yeah. Well, one of my favorite parts about the raffle was about a third of the way in. Sue and Chai Bun and the kids come walking down the trail with an item for the give or for the raffle. Yeah, and they're like, "Oh crap! Like
the bun welder,
we're late." And so they ended up putting the bun welder in the raffle, at some point. But it was kind of funny. And unless you were reading the emails or was informed by somebody else, I mean, who would assume that dinner was at 3:30 and the raffle was starting at like 5? Yeah. You would think that the food would be at 5 and raffle would start later than that. So, it was an easy mistake.
Yeah. But yeah, the raffle was great. There was the round from the Big Sluice Tree was won by Heather.
Yes.
And they did a live auction for it. There was actually a guy there at Rubithon who had a career as a live auctioneer.
Yeah. That was so funny. He was from Arkansas?
I think so, yeah.
Somewhere out there. Yeah. And yeah, he straight up did the live auctioneering.
Yeah.
Like, I have $100 here. I got 100. Oh, there's 150, 150, 150, two over there.
That was pretty cool.
You know, and then it was fun because he did one way, and then when we got up to like $500, he changed it.
Yeah.
He said, okay, like everybody behind me, whenever you see a hand get raised, I want you all to go, yip.
Yep.
You know, and so then at one point, everybody was yelling yips, and then and he was doing the live auctioneering. So yeah, that was pretty neat. I forgot. I don't know who Heather was bidding against, but we got $750.
$750 was the final price.
Yeah, donated back into TLCA.
Yes, sir.
I had to spell it out in my head. TLCA.
Yep.
Right back to them. Donated that money, and Heather, who is the president of TLCA, took it home, and we actually went and talked to her after the fact because it was kind of interesting because I heard some bad banter about shit, like she was bidding on it, and like she might have been using TLCA's money to buy it, and that she was probably just going to use it as another raffle item later in point.
Okay.
But when we talked to her, she was like, I saw that, and I immediately knew that I wanted it, and I wasn't going to leave here until I got it, and I'm going to take it home, and I'm going to put it on the wall.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
And so whoever was saying the bad banter is not right.
Correct.
You know,
she spent her own money on it.
She spent her own money on it, and she wanted it.
Yeah.
she wanted it.
Yeah. So it was cool. Heather won it. Congrats to Heather. We got a picture with her. We'll have to get that out on the grams here.
Yeah, we're going to need to talk to Power Tank Tyler because he took those photos.
Oh, that's right. He does have them. So yeah, raffle was good. It was a good raffle. It got done nice and early because of how early dinner was.
Yeah.
And then that was pretty much after that. It was bar was Friday night.
Bar was Friday night.
That's what happened Friday night. So Saturday night was pretty kicked back. I think we all went back to camp and started drinking back at camp and kind of got pre-packed.
Yeah. There was... Yeah, a lot of us packed. We packed up quite a bit. I was pretty much packed except for the RTT that I needed to close up. And that was about it. We had 3-4 different times of people leaving the next morning. We had Dimitri and the buggy Jeep leaving at like 5:30. We had a group leaving at 6. And we were planning on leaving at 7, and all of those people were planning on going back to Loon.
Yep.
And then there was a group, I think they left about 6:30.
Yeah.
That was doing the full trail all the way out Cadillac. And so pretty much once Dimitri started his rig, everybody was awake.
Yeah, he was the alarm call.
Pretty much.
The
I was
Mule.
up before that.
Yeah.
But I didn't really move around a whole lot. But once, I was out of the tent moving around before he started his rig up. And I was ready to go fairly, by 6, I think. And I think we didn't leave until about 6:30. And the group going up Cadillac left slightly before 6:30. And so they shot out. And then right as we were leaving, we were literally driving into the Springs because we were camped slightly out of it. We got a distress call across the radio.
Yeah, and it was our group that was heading up Cadillac. And said Cinna had broken a front axle shaft.
Yep.
So front passenger axle shaft. We're like, okay, well, have you guys been able to pull it apart? What's going on? So I pulled it apart. This whole time, I'm thinking that they're on Cadillac. I thought that they were, maybe at the bottom of Cadillac, maybe at that S-turn. I figured it might be a little tough on his steering to get up through there with the locker on with an IFS. I'm thinking that they're pulling it all and doing all this on Cadillac. So I'm like, all right, let's see what you guys need. We'll send the rescue party in with parts or tools, whatever we need to do. And the cool thing about the GX front differential is that the axle shaft are flanged to the differential.
Right.
They're not inserted into the differential, right?
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and so all he needed to do really was pull the axle shaft off. He had blown the CV.
Right.
And so we were trying to talk about it, but they weren't sure if it was inserted or flanged on it. And we were like, well, one thing you guys could do is just cut the axle shaft and then cut it short enough so that the stub sticking out of the differential doesn't flop around and hit anything. And so that's what the plan became, was to do. But me and Mike were the only ones with grinders, and Mike was in the bathroom. So I took off to go find them, and turns out they were only right on the back side of the slabs pretty much.
Yeah, there would be 4 dirty dozen, but just barely after the slabs.
Yeah, so I pulled up and parked right next to Cinna and pulled out my 4.5-inch grinder, plugged it into my Premier power welder on the power tool circuit, and then started going to town on his axle shaft. And I got about halfway through the axle shaft, and the grinder stopped working. It stopped receiving power.
Interesting.
And I was like, what's going on? So I go back and I'm looking at the Premier welder, and I'm smelling burning coming out of my engine bay.
Oh no.
I was like, that's not good. And then I'm looking, like, what is going on? And then I realized I forgot to turn on the power tool switch on the welder. So the Premier,
is that what happened?
Yep.
Okay.
So the Premier power welder, in order to run the welder and any power tools, whatever you plug into the power tool circuit, which is I think it's 2,000 watts DC, but it'll do 2,000 watts 110 volt DC.
Okay.
But in order to run the power tool circuit, you have to flip on a switch, and it has a series of transformers in the welding box that increases the output power so that the alternator, the power that it's increasing, gets transformed up so that you can run power tools and upwards of 2,000 watts.
That's a smart idea. I knew it had that plug. I didn't know how it all worked.
So that's a really, really smart idea. The problem, though, is that you always get electricity going to that plug, whether or not you have the power tool switch on. And I'm like, well, that seems like an oversight, because you can have someone stupid like me who's rushing in a hurry to try and get something done to get them off the trail so we can get going up the trail, plug in a power tool and then melt their alternator like I did.
Yep.
So I melted my alternator.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Nice $600, $700 alternator from Premier. Melted really quick. And so I backed off and went down to a spot, and we were immediately like, well, I'm not going out the trail.
Yeah.
I've got to go get up to Tahoe so I can get a new alternator ASAP, or get a tow truck to take me back home or something. And so we went over, and while I was kind of parked over off the side by Nick, you came up behind me and we plugged some jumper cables.
Yeah. At some point when they realized that your grinder wasn't working right, they called us because Mike, another guy, I don't remember his name, in the 40, John.
Yep.
And I were still hanging out down at the springs waiting for you to come back. And they said, yeah, your grinder's not working. Can Mike come up? And then at that point, we're like, well, let's all just go up there.
Yeah.
So then we found out that you were having electrical problems and your alternator wasn't working. So I was like, well, Mike, go do your grinder thing, the app. And I'm going to go up and plug my wires into Tyler's battery and start charging him up so that at some point, he's going to need full batteries, so we can attack Cadillac.
Yep.
So that was the game plan. Pretty much by the time we were connected and doing something, I think they already had the axle cut in half.
Pretty much.
They just need to disassemble a few things to pull that out.
Well, they ended up not even cutting the axle.
Oh, they didn't?
Yeah, once Mike got there, he dug into it further and pulled the boot off of the inner CV and figured out that it's flanged to the differential rather than inserted into the differential.
Okay.
And so he was like, well, if we just pull that flange off, then we can pull the old axle right away. We don't have to worry about cutting it. We can just pull the whole thing. And so that's what they ended up doing, was they pulled the whole thing out. The Senna was then able to continue in essentially three-wheel drive because you had a front locker.
I think you drove a lot of that out in two-wheel drive.
Yeah.
And just a little bit more momentum. And then when he got to like Cadillac, I think he put it in four-wheel drive and locked the front to give him three-wheel drive.
Yep.
to get out of there.
Yeah.
And you and I were pretty much as soon as people were ready to leave, we were like, all right, our mission is to pretty much boogie and get
out as fast as I can.
Yeah.
Because I only have limited battery.
Exactly.
Yep.
So we got up to about the start of Cadillac, the hairpin corner, and you said like your gauges went out or something like that.
Yep.
And so is that where you merged the batteries?
No,
you did that up top.
Yeah, and my dual battery setup, I've got a low voltage disconnect between the batteries, right? So if the battery power drops below like 12.6 volts, it disconnects the batteries so that they're not connected together anymore, and it operates as two individual batteries. When the voltage gets up above, I think 13.5, 13.4, it reconnects the batteries so that they can charge. Right.
And you run, one of your batteries runs your vehicle, and one of your batteries runs all of your accessories.
Yep.
For the most part.
And so essentially, I had the electric fan plugged into is run off of the vehicle battery, and my compressor and lockers are run off of the accessory battery. And so I was like, well, we had charged my vehicle battery down below because I can turn off everything in the vehicle pretty much so that all that is running is the engine and the electric fans. But I needed lockers to get up Cadillac. I was pretty sure I was going to need some lockers to get up Cadillac.
Just would have made it easier.
Made it easier and quicker then as well.
That's exactly, yeah.
And so I was like, we had charged the engine battery down while they were finishing up Senna. And then when we got to the bottom of Cadillac, I was like, well, let's charge the accessory battery, which is now my locker's battery, just to make sure we can get up to the top of Cadillac here. So we did that for about 10 minutes, went up Cadillac, had no issues, got up Cadillac in 35, 40 minutes.
Yeah, pretty quick.
There, pretty quick.
Also, thanks to Brian.
Yes, Brian Cathcart.
For being, what's the word? Patient.
Patient, yeah.
With us. He caught, at some point, when we were reversing to start attacking Cadillac at the base, he was driving up and we asked him to stop because we just needed to move. He said, yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
And then when we were charging the next time, he caught up to us.
Yeah.
And he was like, nah, I'll just hang out.
Yeah.
You guys need to do your thing and then I'll just be behind you.
Yeah.
And then so then we took off there and then he got us also at the top at observation point.
Yep.
But yeah.
So we made it up Cadillac and as I'm getting to the top of Cadillac, you get in that Manzanita hallway before reaching observation, all my dash lights and everything shut off. So I was like, I didn't have any gauges in my dash, but the engine was still running. And I was like, I'm getting really low on voltage in the battery. So I pulled over really quick and I was going to have you come up and we were going to charge there. And then I realized, I was like, oh, this is the Manzanita hallway. We're like 30 seconds from the top, and I think I can just get up there quick. So I dropped it into like third gear and just bolted up to observation.
Yeah, we were boogieing.
Yeah,
we were doing pretty good. And I'll have to admit, man, it felt good on those tires.
Yeah, you were keeping up with me. Like usually, as we're going down rocky, like grapefruit to bowling ball sized rocky roads, you end up way behind everybody, and you were keeping up with me, and I was pushing my rig to its limits, like going quick.
Yeah.
So
I was trying to stick with you in that section because I knew if there was it's very narrow there. Mm-hmm. So if you had a problem and we needed to charge, I needed to be right on you.
Yeah.
And so we could try and solve that problem as fast as possible. Yeah. On the stretch out, I wasn't too concerned. There's more room there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it felt way better. I do think that I'm a lighter vehicle, so my springs are still stiff.
Mm-hmm. You and I are essentially running the same spring rates.
Yes.
And I weigh about 1,200 pounds heavier than you do.
Right.
So.
And you have bigger tires.
Yes.
Which makes for more sidewall suspension flex or however you want to say it. Puffy pillows.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, when I was going keeping up with you, it felt great. It felt pretty good. Yeah.
I was really impressed at how well, until we got clear to the traffic jam from observation to Tahoma, you were still keeping up with me really well.
Yeah, pretty good.
And I was going at a faster pace than I would normally go through that section. But after the traffic jam, I was like, I need to boogie. And I just took off.
Yeah. But before that, while we were at the top of Cadillac, that's when you rewired stuff.
I rewired the batteries. Essentially, I took out the low voltage disconnect between them and just wired them together in parallel.
In parallel, that's what it's called.
So that it stayed 12 volt. And instead of having two batteries that are 60 to 65 amp hours, I now have one battery that's 120 to 130 amp hours. So I was like, that should be good. I'm just going to turn off everything in the rig. And the only thing that's going to be running is the electric fan. I can turn up the temperature at which the electric fan turns on. So I bumped that up to about, I think, 195, 200 degrees. And then from there at the top of, we sat there and we probably charged my batteries for 20 minutes.
If that, maybe longer.
Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah.
I mean, because we got to the top and the rest of our group caught up to us. Then there was Brian Carhart caught up to us. Cathcart, thank you. And then another group caught up to us. And then right before that other group was about to take off,
That's when I boogied, yeah.
Yeah. So it was a while we were up there.
Yeah. So we got a good charge in there. And then we started boogieing down the trail, ran into our other group, the Senna, Power Tank Senna and Nick. They had gotten caught up in a little rocky section.
And Rod, yeah.
And Rod. And so we caught up to them. We pulled up close and started charging me while we went to check what was going on with everybody else. And then after we got clear of them, they moved on ahead. And then eventually over the radio, you told everybody that I was boogieing. And so like literally it happened perfectly where I could hear them over the radio because I had my radio, I had the handheld on. That's what it was.
I gave you a handheld so that you would turn your radio off to just save more power.
And I could hear them on the radio say, okay, I'm pulled over. And like 5 seconds later, right by him.
Yeah. And then Rod was like, okay, just passed me. And then whoever was in front of Rod was like, okay, pulling over.
Yep.
You know, and I think there was a few times when people were just, like the whole group, I think pretty much pulled over after that.
Pretty much, yeah.
And then there was an FJ80 that was in the mix too that we had no contact with.
Yeah, we didn't have contact with, but like I told the guy at that rocky section where we caught up to everybody, I was like, hey, dude, I don't have an alternator. So once I turn my rig on and get going, I need to be boogieing. I need to get going. And he tried to stay in front of me for a while and ahead of me, but he wasn't able to stay fast enough.
Yeah.
For the pace that I was setting.
Yeah.
And so he eventually pulled over. And once I got by him, I took off. But one interesting thing that was happening was I was hearing a clicking noise. And I was like, I'm not sure what this clicking noise is. And while you were still around, I had you kind of stand outside the rig as I drove a little section. And you were like, man, it sounds to me like a wheel bearing. Like it's,
yeah.
But on the way out, I was like, it's not happening. Usually you would hear wheel bearings clicking as you put stress back on the wheel bearing, right?
Right.
And it seemed to be happening when I would hit a bump, I would come up, and it was in that split second of free floating space.
Oh, interesting.
Where tension was taken off of everything before I come back down.
Okay.
So I was like, it's not a wheel bearing. There's something else going on here. I don't know what's going on though. And I stopped at one point to just look over all my suspension really quick, and everything was tight.
We tightened things. We tightened. You somewhere in the mix, you lost a lug nut.
That's right.
And so we're like, well, let's move a lug nut from your rear tire to your front tire because those take more stress than the rear tires do. So we did that. We checked your steering arms. We checked your hubs. We checked your shackles. We checked a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and everything was
tight.
Tight enough. And it was still clicking.
So in my mind, I'm like, well, then it's got to be internal.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got to be something on the inside. Everything on the outside looks fine.
I was thinking maybe a trunnion bearing by how it was behaving. I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. And so finally, I'm blowing down the trail from observation to Tahoma staging. Pull into Tahoma staging about half an hour before anybody else showed up.
Wow. Okay.
25 minutes maybe. And so I'm sitting there. I'm just letting the rig cool down. And literally as I pulled in the parking lot, all my dash shut off. And so it was like just perfect timing. It was about 40 minutes worth of driving, 15, 20 minutes of charging, 40 minutes of driving is what I was getting out of it. And as I'm waiting for everybody to show up, I just lay under the rig. I'm looking over stuff, and I think I figured out what my clicking was.
Yeah. You told me to lay under your rig and look around.
Yeah.
And at that point, I had an idea of what I was supposed to be looking for, but I still didn't find it. Mm-hmm. So what did you actually end up finding?
So a lot of leaf-sprung Toyotas like to crack the frame up around the leaf spring hangers in the front. My front driver leaf spring hanger and the frame around it was cracked on 3 out of 4 sides.
Yeah.
Like all the way through. And it was like you could see where the metal was no longer flush. The frame was like offset because the front had fallen down a little bit. And then the passenger side spring hanger around that welding and the spring hanger was cracked on 2 out of 4 sides. And then further down the frame, as you go from the front of the frame kind of down the passenger side body, right near my shock hoops, but it wasn't because of the shock mount, the shock hoop, where my air conditioning compressor, the frame had to be notched right there to clear the AC pulley. The frame was cracked on 3 out of 4 sides right there.
Yes.
And so I'm pretty sure that's what the clicking was the frame flexing and coming back together.
Wow. Yeah.
And
that's nuts.
Yeah, I was like, well, I guess I get to do new axles and suspension now.
You need to. There's no more wheeling and Kermit until your frame's fixed.
Yep. And my whole plan for the new suspension is to cut off the frame at the firewall and put a whole new frame in, build a whole new frame. So I was like, well, this frame's fucked anyways. Time to take it down.
Timeline has now moved forward.
Yes, it has. So, after that, we got everything aired up. We recharged my batteries, said bye to everybody. Everybody caught up to us. And we ended up going on down into South Lake to see if we can find an alternator in South Lake as a temporary fix to get me home. And so we ended up having lunch at Sonny's Barbecue, my favorite barbecue
that place
spot.
Is super good.
Super good food there in South Lake. And then Power Tank Steve and Tyler were down. They beat us to Sonny's Barbecue. So they had lunch about 20 minutes ahead of us. And then we had our lunch. And while we were having lunch, I called John Allen, who is very familiar with Premier welders, because I knew that there was something about the Premier welder where you couldn't just wire the alternator, a Premier alternator, back into your vehicle's system because it runs off of high frequency rather than amplitude, right?
Okay.
And so in order to put a new alternator into the system, the electrical has to go through the welder box because that's where the voltage regulator is at. In the welder box. And in order to run the power through the welder box, you have to have their specific alternator because it's a high frequency alternator rather than a high amperage alternator kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, so how do I put in a regular alternator and still run my vehicle?
Yeah.
How
I need to replace the alternator. Mm-hmm. How do I won't be able to get a Premier alternator out here. So I have to put in a regular alternator, standard alternator. Mm-hmm. How do I do that? Yep. And still make it run?
So pretty much the answer was I was smart when I installed the Premier alternator. I left.
You or John was.
Either me or John, probably John.
Yeah.
To that we left the stock wiring harness intact. We didn't cut any of the plugs off, just left it all there. And so I was like, hey, I still have the plugs for a stock alternator. And so that's what we did. We just needed to run a power line from the alternator back to the battery, and then we could use the stock voltage regulator in the vehicle. So I was like, I know a trick for running power line 20 feet, high power, 160 amp power line back to the back. You just get jumper cables.
Yep.
So we called around a couple auto parts stores in South Lake Tahoe for 97, 98 Tacoma alternator and 20 to 25 foot jumper cables as thick as they can get, 2-aught or 4-aught. And so they had some 2-aught jumper cables 20 feet long.
And a alternator belt because you cut yours.
I had to cut the alternator belt.
Because it was smoking down at the springs.
Yep, to keep the alternator from turning. I had to cut the belt.
Cut the belt off, and so we had to replace the belt too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So while we were having lunch, we made some phone calls, found all the parts we needed, and went down to an AutoZone. The alternator we got from AutoZone was damaged, so I had to return it and sent you down to O'Reilly's with my card to buy the other one while I started preparing the jumper cables to be used as an alternator wire. Got all that hooked up, set up. It took us about 2 hours in total.
I think so.
Just because we had to repair some stuff and...
Yeah, we had to repair a few things. We had to go run another errand to get another alternator. Yeah, and, just making sure everything was right.
Yeah.
So we had to... And one thing that took longer than sort of anticipated was... The alternator belt is the farthest back belt.
That's true.
And so we had to remove the front two belts.
Uh-huh.
And if you wouldn't run an air conditioner, it would have only been one belt. So we had to pull all these belts off and then to install the alternator belt and then put all the belts back on.
Yeah.
So
that took a little bit longer than anticipated to do.
Yeah, it wasn't as simple as run a wire and replace an alternator.
Yeah. So but we got it all tightened up. Took us about 2 hours, and we headed on down the hill. And what was weird was the system was getting full voltage from the alternator, but my charge light on the vehicle was still coming on.
Yeah, I don't know why. There might be something wire-wise that the Premier...
I figured it out.
Okay, what?
The voltage regulator in the vehicle was out. It was bad.
Okay.
But since I've been running everything pretty much since the engine swap off of the Premier and the welder with its own built-in voltage regulator, never needed the stock voltage regulator in the vehicle.
Makes sense.
And so I figured that out. I went to start up the 4Runner and bring it by the warehouse to show Sean and Ryan the frame cracks. And I started up the vehicle and it was running like 16 volts.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, that's not good. So I shut off the vehicle really quick. And I was like, that would be why the battery charge light was not happy.
Makes sense.
Because the voltage regulator was not working properly.
Got it. Okay.
So anyways, I've had the 4Runner now sitting in the driveway while I'm getting ready to do the axles and suspension. And so I don't know if we're going to have to cover another episode. We're running long here.
Yeah.
But now I've been digging into... I'm going to have Ori do the suspension and the frame, and I'm going to build the axles.
Okay.
Because I'm like, that's the part that I really like, is the axles.
Yeah.
But
we're going to be the Axle Talk podcast
for a little bit here.
For a little while coming up.
Yeah, because I'm not doing any more trips. You have Marlin Crawler Roundup coming up.
Yeah, in like a week.
2 weeks that you get to go on. And I'm just kind of staying home. With the busy summer with Morphlate events and wheeling, I let a lot of stuff go at the house. So now I'm in like house project. I'm not going to be going on any more wheeling trips until the 4Runner has a new suspension and axles under it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I got left to do, I want to put front bump stops on Bobcat before I hit Marlin Roundup.
Okay.
So I need to just take some time and do that probably next week because I've got some travel plans with the family this week that I'm going on, and I hope I can get that done in the next few days before Marlin that happens. And because I am having an issue with my pitman arm is hitting my tie rod.
Yeah. Pretty hard right now.
Pretty hard. And I think it's because the springs have sagged.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything's sort of collapsing in on itself. While I was talking to Dimitri out on the Rubithon, he was telling me that there's a company here in Sacramento called Sac Spring that'll actually rebuild springs. Like you can take the spring to them.
Interesting.
And they'll re-arc it to some extent. Like if they said a stock spring, we can arc it up to about 2 to 3 inches, depending on the spring. If you want more than that, we'll cut the spring and lengthen it so you can get more arc. And they do all the forging and everything there here in Sacramento.
Impressive. I want to go take a tour of their place.
Totally. And so I talked to them, and they quoted me for about $350 to get the springs re-arced.
That's not bad.
our buddy Dave, First Gen 4Runner Dave, just bought new front springs for his 4Runner. He said he got brand new ones for around $400 to $420. I don't remember. So you save a little bit for getting your old springs re-arced. But I'm planning on, what the solution that needs to happen is I really need to rotate my power steering box. And so I've been spend $350, get the springs re-arced, but they're in a position that's pretty good. I just need bump stops on them. I like how they're comfy, they're flatter, they're a little lower. I like where the springs are right now. So if I got them arced, my truck would be taller. So I'm kind of like, I don't really want to do that. If I buy new springs, my truck would be taller and the springs would be stiff. I don't really want to do that. So what I need to do is I just need to put bump stops on and make it through this probably one more wheeling trip.
And then rotate
And then I can rotate the steering box because I'll have some more time between then and maybe snow wheeling season. Yeah. Because I really don't have another wheeling trip coming up. There might be something in the works for Big Bear with some the SLO County people.
Nice.
We'll see. But... yeah, so I just need my Band-Aid is I'm going to put bump stops on it. So then, but that's not, it'll be a permanent fix in a way because it'll prevent me from having too much up travel, but I need to rotate my power steering box, which then I might have to adjust the bump stops. So we'll see how it goes. The only other thing I really wanted to say is I was this entire time on the Rubithon trip planning on driving back the trail to Loon because I towed Bobcat up there. And so since I wheeled all the way out and around with you, I had to drive
You had to be my spare alternator.
I had to be your spare alternator, charging you a few different times on the way out. On the way home, I had to drive up I's house and all the way back up to the pretty much the chalet at the spillway there and load Bobcat on and drive down the hill. So I had a few extra hours of drive time. I think out of everybody in our run, I probably lived the closest and I was the last one home.
It's true.
I don't know. I don't think anybody lived closer than you or I. And I was like 2 hours behind you or something like that. But it's, hey, sometimes it's what you need to do to make sure everybody gets out safe.
I appreciate it a lot.
And I appreciate you coming on trips with me.
Yeah?
Yeah, because
that's weird.
You break down a lot and it gives us stories to talk about on the podcast. Otherwise, it would have been like, it was a pretty uneventful trip. It went well. We wheeled in and we had some fun. We led Senna around, and we wheeled out and drank a lot on Friday night.
Yeah.
But now we have a whole story to talk about.
I thought you were going to say I'm getting sick of wheeling with you because you keep breaking down. It takes a lot more time.
Personal side, yes.
Okay.
For the podcast, no. Gotcha. This is great content.
See, that's what I just do it for the podcast, man.
Yeah. We're not going to do maintenance on our rigs ever again so that we continue to break down to give good content for the podcast.
There we go. I'm down for it. Oh, man. Good times. Rubithon was a lot of fun. We had some issues coming out, but we made it work, and it was MacGyvered some stuff, and Jimmy rigged some stuff, and it made it home. Everybody made it home just fine. Overall, great trip.
Yeah, fantastic. 5 stars. Would do it again.
Yeah.
I do really like Rubithon. I like the Rubicon too, but I do really like the Rubithon. I liked the event a lot. It was fun to be out there with a bunch of other Toyotas, like-minded people in a way, with the rig. We don't really we had 4 Jeeps in our group of 12 rigs.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you have a Jeep or not, but the event was small. I mean, there was 125, 130 people rigs at the event, registration rigs at the event. A lot of people, multiple people. It was a good event. It was fun to hang out at the springs. It wasn't crowded. There's plenty of parking. The raffle and everything. Everybody sitting on the lawn it wasn't crowded. It wasn't
heckling during the
heckling
raffle
was fun. But I'm just saying, my point of Rubithon was that it's not a huge event.
Yeah.
It's a fairly low-key event.
I don't think I would have fun if there was 2,000 people down in the springs.
No. I mean, it would be a fun party.
See,
but it wouldn't be... I think Rubithon was more fun because it was a smaller, more intimate crowd.
Yep.
So that's my 2 cents on Rubithon. I definitely like it because it was way more low key, but a fun event, and you still got to go out on the trail and play.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a good event. It's definitely much more of a relaxed environment, less of a party per se, and more of a, you're just hanging out, socializing with a bunch of other people. And there's some big names in the Toyota industry that show up.
Toyota
that you get
and
to hang
off-road
out.
industry.
Off-road
for sure.
industry show up for sure. And so it's just a different vibe than Jeepers or Jeep Jamboree.
Absolutely.
Rubithon does not discriminate. They actually had, I think he said, a total of 9 Jeeps registered for Rubithon this year. You don't need to have a Toyota to come on Rubithon.
There's
TLCA
9
events.
total, and there was 4 of them in our group.
We had half of the Jeeps in the 4Runner mini truck run. Yeah,
That's funny.
yeah. I don't know. It's a fun
And
trip.
next year we'll have 5
I know, right?
when Nick comes.
Nick's gonna bring his Gladiator.
Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. I like it. Good stuff. Good times. You don't have to have a Toyota to come out to a TLCA event. Nope. They don't discriminate. We love seeing all the people. For us, it's all about the people and the socializing, right?
Yeah. And
Down there
supporting
hanging out.
the Rubithon and TLCA.
Yeah.
Got it right that time.
Yep. So yeah, man, good stuff. If anybody wants to get a hold of us, how can they do that?
Yeah, you can email us, Jimmy or Tyler, at snailtrail4x4.com. You can find me on Instagram, snailtrail4x4. You can find Tyler over at 4x4 Toyota Tyler. You can also phone in 916-345-4744. And you can always find us over on Facebook if you are a member on the SnailSquad forum, or you can contact us on irate 4x4 simply by using the hashtag and our names over there.
Yep.
I think I'm Jimmy Jet 10 on irate. Are you 4x4 Toyota Tyler?
Yep.
Nice. So if you can't figure out how to message us or get a hold of us, then you're not trying hard enough.
It's true. There's a lot of different ways to do it.
I just signed up for the new social media app, Vero, Vero.
Interesting. Okay.
Supposedly it's the new Instagram.
Okay.
I'm checking it out, playing around with it. I've done 3 posts and nobody's liked anything. So it's kind of interesting, but it's for photos. It's not necessarily for
Photos and videos. It's only photos.
It's photos and videos, but they are really pushing the photography side of it. I think they're pissed that Instagram's moving to Reels, and this app is trying to step in as the photo app.
Okay.
Similar to Instagram, but just more towards the photo side.
Yeah, more towards photography
Yes.
in general. Like photography as an art form or just photos in general?
I would probably say photography is an art form.
Interesting.
It seems like at least the people that I know that are on this are more photographers.
Okay. Cool. Good to know. Yeah, let us know how that turns out.
Yeah, we'll see.
Cool. All right, that's all I got. Jimmy, final words for everybody.
I'm now pretty convinced that I need to throw an alternator into my spare parts bin that I carry out on the trail with me, because there's a few times that I've had an alternator gone bad in a matter of years. And we just found out that Hustle Nuts lost his alternator on the Fordyce trip here this last weekend.
That's right. You lost your alternator in Moab this year.
I lost my alternator in Moab this year, and I've lost an alternator down in Pismo a handful of, maybe a decade ago.
Okay.
So an alternator going out drastically changes your trip. So
yes, it does.
I think, if there's enough rigs around that, run a similar engine, somebody should be carrying an alternator.
I agree. And with that, my friends, keep crawling.
I got one for you.
Ready.
What happens when you boil a funny bone?
I have no idea.
It becomes a laughing stock.
Okay.
No.
What's the hottest letter of the alphabet?
D.
No. B, because it makes oil boil.
Okay.
Man.
I don't get it.
The letter B
Yeah.
makes oil boil
Why?
because you're adding the letter B onto oil and it turns it into boil.
Okay. Mine was better.
Debatable. Oh, man.